Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to this conversation by SenzaFili in collaboration with Fierce Wireless. It's part of a report on automation that looks at how wireless networks are becoming increasingly automated. And so what we're talking about today is that what does the automation mean for an operator? How does it affect the operations and the business case for automation? And I'm talking today to Petri Hautakangas, the CEO of Tupl, and Pablo Tapia, the CTO of Tupl. And we will learn from them what they do. It's a new company, so it's exciting to hear what they're doing. And Petri and Pablo, thanks for being with us today.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Monica.
Okay, so for an introduction, tell us what you guys do at Tupl.
Okay, so yeah, we are a relatively young company. So we were founded in 2014, and with a good group of industry experts, and we saw actually the real need for automation coming up, especially in the most aggressive, Tier 1 operators, and there wasn't really good solutions out there. So that was the premise for founding the company to start developing a solution that can address the automation tasks when it comes to complex but repetitive manual work that happens day in, day out in network operations.
Very good. So, and there is a lot of work to be done there in terms of automation, but it's also interesting to see how does automation relate to other sort of sister efforts, so AI, machine learning, deep learning. What are the relationships among all these parts?
Well, Monica, so automation has been going on in the networks already for a while. Operators have been trying to deploy solutions to be more efficient, and we have seen examples way back, for example, doing frequency planning or cell planning. Some tools are automating the networks using artificial intelligence, which in reality is a way to put people's thoughts into code. But the real breakthrough of what we are seeing today is that there are techniques like machine learning that are enabling this automation to go one step beyond what was possible today. There are algorithms that don't necessarily require coding, so the speed to create these automation solutions is much faster, and they can go deeper than regular coding could do. They can capture things that are more gray areas. And as we have seen, the machine learning and deep learning is taking over in many industries. So not only in the telecom space, but in the automation space, in agriculture, and it's only natural that it will come to telecom and it will start to produce very, very nice results.
So, there is automation that is taking hold in all different, and automation, AI, and different machine learning, deep learning in all different industries. Is there anything special in the wireless industry in terms of motivating the adoption of these technologies?
Yeah, in reality, what's happening in the wireless industry is that we see that the complexities of the networks are increasing dramatically. Not only because of the technologies that are deployed, but also because of the size of the networks. There are more components that are deployed with small cells, more devices with IoT, and at the same time you have customers that are becoming increasingly demanding on quality. So in reality, networks operators need to become much more efficient at operating these systems. And the only possible way to do it is through automation. So exactly.
Right, and but automation is not simple. It's not something that you do overnight. So how do you see mobile operators going through this in terms of doing it with getting the benefits without too much disruption?
Yeah. So what we we see is that this is a long-term journey, meaning that it's not a big solution that you buy and you deploy and then you transform your operations from one day to the other. It's something that is kind of a gradual path where with very little investment actually, operators can start to bet into this transformation and they can start to see benefits already from day one. Our vision is that there's a lot of things that can be automated. There are customers that are actually having big targets for automation in the order of 80% of their processes. And this is a journey of automating little by little all these processes that are done manually today. And in order to do that, you have to have a vision of how you're going to orchestrate all these automation solutions so that it doesn't become a monster and you're creating another problem that different than the one that you're trying to solve.
Yes, and we're going to go into the sort of the technology aspects later, but before we go there, can you tell us about the cultural changes that go with it as well? Because technology is one part of it, but automating a network means that you're going to lose some control. It means that people will do different things, and some people are fearful that this will introduce changes that humans will be made irrelevant. How do you address that?
Yeah, first off, we don't believe in losing control. It has to be a transparent system, so it has to be run by engineers. But we try to take away the repetitive tasks that are actually not what the engineers should be doing. They should rise above it. So, but that's one part of the system that one deploys for any use case. Should start from looking at the existing way of doing things, but doing that automatically, and then it adapts to the operator's existing environment. So then you don't have the kind of cultural problem, at least in terms of that you need to change what the way things are done right now, but it's just done automatically. But the engineers continue to be in control. Mm-hmm. And then the next step would be that you start looking into adding new value, new functionality that is not possible doing by just by manual processes. So that's how you go about it. But there are, of course, some obstacles, also technical ones and departmental ones, because at the end of the day, in order to create value, you may be then needing to break down some silos that exists pretty much in any operator at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I would add to that there is a very exciting perspective of how this can change how people are operating the networks today. So, as Petri mentioned, there is a lot of manual work that goes on a day-to-day basis. So that culture needs to change into having a higher level role where engineers, instead of doing the actual job, they are more like designers. And they go from being telecom engineers to a sort of software engineers that handle all these models and the decision and the knowledge base that is being created. So it's an interesting change of paradigm. It doesn't have to happen overnight, but it will be interesting how it develops.
How do you see in terms of phases? Is it going to be the operators are going to start automating end to end or different functions? How do you think it's going to happen?
So we are engaging with extremely aggressive operators in Europe, here in North America, and in Japan. So every operator is slightly different. But at the end of the day, you start to see from the most aggressive operators a kind of an approach that, you make a mental decision that I will need to reach these type of automation levels. Otherwise, when the complexity increases in the network, it's not possible anymore. So then it distills into, different functions, and then, the automation tasks start from there. So that's what we see. You have small tasks to be automated, but then you have also rather big ones, like, for example, optimization or solving technical customer care issues in an automated way.
Yeah. So what are the parts of what are the functions that operators are more keen to have automated to start with?
Yeah, so it depends on every operator, right? Every operator has their own pain points. Depends also on the phase that they are. So there are some operators that are growing, so they need an augmentation of their workforce. So things like help me design the network faster or troubleshoot problems quicker are very relevant to them. There are other operators that are really focused on customer experience, and they want to see their customer care processes improve, because right now, if you look at typical ratings, operators don't get very good reviews from customer care perspective, so there is a lot of room for improvement there. So, depending on the operator, depending also on the geography, there is a focus on one point or the other. But what is important to understand is that, there are many, many things to do. And ultimately, all these things fall into buckets that all operators will end up having to do.
Yeah, and yes, there is a lot of scope there to automate all sorts of different things. And you mentioned you work both in Europe, Japan, and US. Have you seen any differences there?
Yes. So I would first maybe mention a surprise in a way, Japan. So Japan has created this almost a countrywide mentality to automation, right? So it's a very strong holistic request that is maybe it's one of the most aggressive countries, I would think, and that then flows into the operators definitely. And then US, it's very business oriented and customer oriented. That we need to be efficient, and we need to serve our customers the best possible way. And if you have too many manual tasks, it takes time, for example, to respond to customer issues. And if you are able to automate that, just think about how quickly. Then there's always some issues here and there. But if you are able to respond quickly to the customer problems, you are in a different league from the others.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Pablo, you mentioned that in terms of the business case, this is not a very expensive addition to the network. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah. So in reality, because of the technologies that can be leveraged for these kind of solutions, these are not massive systems that need to be developed. So what is important is to focus on what is the value that is provided to the customer, and in many cases it's a very clear-cut business case for them, right? Because one comes with a solution that is providing a significant amount of savings, and you are able to quantify. So in reality, you can demonstrate ROI in a few months. So it's quite an easy investment from operators' point of view.
But at the same time, you think that automation, because you need to go through the learning process at the beginning, and then so there is a component that you can get a sort of a quick return on investment, but it seems like there's also a long-term change. So is there a long-term component on the ROI? Is that what you?
Well, in reality, it depends on the solution that you're using. So we've put a lot of focus into making that those aspects very simple in our solution. So how to create those models, how to train them, how to make sure that the maintainability of the automation solutions are really not impacting the bottom lines.
Right.
Actually, the ROI can be extremely fast when it comes to these automation applications. I mean, they are rather complex, but if there is a good underlying system to quickly create the automation model by using the engineer's workflow in the particular customer, you see the benefits really fast. So the ROI, we can make a very interesting case on that.
And one interesting aspect as well is that it's a cumulative savings. So it's kind of a little bit of a change of mentality. So when one looks at this problem, you're not trying to solve everything or to get a big chunk of your OPEX with the first step. But when you look at the final goal, it's a cumulative savings of costs that many times were hidden costs, and at the same time empowerment for doing new things. So it's a very interesting model.
Yeah, and as I say, that applies to so many parts of the wireless network. So let's talk a bit about what you guys specifically do on this. What is that? What is that your focus is? Because as I said, there is so much to do. What did you pick as your first goal and focus?
Our slogan is operations made simple. So we deal with at the moment in the areas of automating the technical customer care, even looking into doing that in a proactive manner. Then we are automating network engineering and optimization tasks. Maybe you heard, we have a product called Network Advisor, just recently won Fierce Innovation Award. So that's in the network optimization category. And then we do the kind of network operations center, task optimization and alarm handling and so forth. So there's a lot to be done in a more intelligent way in that area also. So those are the kind of three buckets that we do. So I could mention briefly what is this technical customer care. So automation. So basically, there is a quite maybe about 20-30% of the overall customer care issues, they are related to something technical, right? The others are other types of issues, and those end up landing into the operations and engineering people, and they spend a huge amount of time going issue by issue, looking at 6 different tools and trying to in their head correlate what actually was the root cause and how to fix and how to communicate back to the customer. It takes a long time. It also consumes a lot of the engineer's time, right? And it's not necessarily consistent because you have a group of 100 or 200 engineers doing it. So we set out to automate this. So and this is a good example because we started with let's say around in a particular customer case, in a certain amount of feeds that we correlated that the engineers typically did, and the results were immediately really valuable and so forth. And using their expertise to figure out then that what is the right root cause and what to communicate. So we trained that model with the engineers. But then you start to add more information into the system. So you get more granularity, more accuracy to really pinpoint the issue and so forth. So, that's a kind of then the next step, that how you add new value to the existing process that was impossible in a way for an engineer to have all this data in hand. So, and it's the savings are quite significant, and the customers are really happy.
Yeah, so the system keeps learning. So as you say, so what it looks like at the beginning, you're going to have the initial learning phase, but then as you go on, it sort of perfects itself. So you should be seeing better results, right?
Yes, but perfecting is maybe not the right word, because the situation also changes. So let's say that you would build a perfect system. It would be a static environment. And we all know that, especially mobile networks, there's nothing static about it. So new technologies are introduced or changes in the network. It has to adapt. And the only way to have this in a scalable manner, in a maintainable manner, is by AI learning.
And in reality, it's not like it's going to be always getting better. There's one point where it's good enough because, even engineers don't agree on the results. So what is important is to have the ability to provide this feedback mechanism to continue adapting and, and reteaching the system. And there is also, an interesting concept of how do you go, beyond the first use case. So there are two ways to go. One is to continue going deeper into that use case. So for example, in the case that Petri mentioned, the customer care resolution, now we are going into the second phase, which is, well, instead of reacting to a customer complaint, we are going to proactively identify and resolve.
I call it the holy grail of customer care.
But at the same time, once you have incorporated all these different data feeds and you have incorporated all this data correlation, now you can build other use cases on top of what we call our Tupl OS platform, which is in reality an AI correlation engine that allows you to build more value and then realize this dream of creating multiple automation solutions that solve your bigger problem.
It is a journey.
Yeah, so basically, once you understand what's going on, what the causes are, you might be able to, as I say, preempt them. So you might see the problem coming, and also you might generate new services that address the kind of concerns that users have.
And that's also a good example of this, let's say, reactive customer care going towards proactive, because you actually validate your model and the underlying algorithm in the reactive mode, right? And then you start to have the proactiveness that even, before there's a physical call, you are able to then use the same process then for, the proactive actions.
Right.
And in reality, not everybody calls to complain. So this gives you a way.
Churn, right?
Yeah, gives you a way to.
They churn before they call, so you want to catch them before that. You're right. There is a huge amount of value, and in fact, operators do not know why people churn. So that would be a very good way to address that, because if nothing else, they can go back and see somebody churned, what happened before. So now the other thing is that once an operator, say, adopts your solution for customer care, they have a whole system. They're learning a lot about their network, which goes beyond customer care, because they say it's a technical problem. So how easy it is for them to then move to new areas of automation?
So it's very easy.
Solution.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we have always taken a vision of a multitude of use cases developed on a common platform or an AI engine. So from the beginning, we've designed our use cases considering this expansion. So once you have integrated the first use case, which depends on the first pain point that the operator has, then adding the next one is a very simple effort from an integration point of view. And then you just focus on the creation of the value through the models and the training and so on. So to give you an example, with customers that we started with a customer care solution, now we're going into a second use case, which is around network optimization and troubleshooting, which we call network advisory. Right? And it uses many of the same feeds, but it solves a different problem, which is the problem of the RF engineers in the field.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what's next at Tupl? What do you guys going to be working for the next 5 years? It's a long time, but just
5 years, yeah. Nobody knows. Yeah, so we've set now good foundations, especially with the most aggressive operators. So we see now the next wave of operators for the same. But then it's really continue with the journey. So we already have requests on IoT seen as almost as a separate service and not separate network, but it has to be managed in a, it kind of these things take kind of additional paths and then those need to be properly managed and automated as much as possible, because again networks are not getting any simpler anytime soon. So we are to support all these future paths going forward. Then there is also the question of let me back a little bit. So what we have designed is completely generic. So it's any network operations. So we already see the complexities increasing in let's say other verticals such as utilities. So they've been kind of it's been easy for them to be honest, because it's a point-to-point connection, and every now and then a couple of bits come, right? But now smart meters and so forth. So the kind of you have many other networks where the same process applies, right? But to be honest, mobile networks, you can't find a more complex place to be. And we've proven ourselves to solve even the most complex tasks by automation. And then there are other verticals that we see that are trending to the same kind of problem. That do I throw bodies at the problem, or do I do things in a smart way?
Yeah. There is a huge amount of possibilities out there, and I guess you tackled the hard case. Pablo and Petri, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Monica. It's a pleasure.
So this was a conversation on automation and how it impacts wireless networks, and it's part of a report by SenzaFili in collaboration with Fierce Wireless. Thank you all for listening in.